Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're so excited to have you here today as we talk about mindless to mindful eating. My name is Kelly Kunkel, and I'm an extension educator with health and nutrition. And I'm here with Mary Schrader, and she's my colleague in health and nutrition. Mary is based out of the Marshall Regional Office in Minnesota, and I'm based in the Mankato Regional Office. So we are just thrilled to be able to present to you. So we've got a few things that Mary and I would like to have you consider as we move forward in our day-to-day. So these are some questions to ponder. Why do you eat when you're not hungry? How do advertisements trick people into buying specific foods? And what are some hidden influences in our environment? We'll be talking about this throughout our time today, but maybe just some time to reflect on those questions would be ideal. One of you said, I just want to know what mindless eating is. And mindless eating is the term used to describe being physically and emotionally unaware of what and why you are eating. There's so many different reasons to eat, and there's so many reasons to eat mindlessly. So when I say a certain event or a holiday, it might automatically trigger in your mind a food that you eat. So for example, if I say Thanksgiving, you might think turkey. If I say birthday party, you might think automatically cake. When I say breakup, you might think chocolate. And if I say movie, you might think popcorn. So there are endless reasons why we might have the opportunity to overeat or mindlessly eat. And the reasons can be very simple. It might be linked to an event. It could be linked to just comfort and ease. I was thinking about last year during the holiday season when we were all in our offices and people were bringing all of these great holiday treats. I know you know what I'm talking about. All these baked goods and all these different candies. And they were out and in full display. And I would walk by and they would look so enticing. Just the taste, the smell, the appearance, the anticipation that I knew that this particular thing was really good. And when this person brought it, I know I would enjoy it. And so there was this opportunity to mindlessly eat and grab a certain bar or a certain cookie as I was walking by because it was very easy to do. And that's sometimes how we make the decisions of what we eat. They're normal occurrence. We don't think a whole lot about them. So I'm going to ask you, have you ever eaten that last piece of dried up cake at the bottom of the pan? Or a soggy fry at the bottom of a container? Or that burnt hot dog off of the grill? Or maybe even that whole bag of chips? I hope I'm not the only one that's done this. The first three, they don't even sound very, very good, do they? That doesn't seem like something that we'd even want to consider. And then that whole bag of chips, well, that's easy enough to do as we're maybe mindlessly watching TV or in a stressed state. We might consider just consuming the whole thing. So what is our cue to finish? Oftentimes our cue to finish is when that cake pan is empty, or that plate is empty, or that bag of chips is empty. There are so many things that can influence our eating. And so we don't pick up on the cues that we might have. It just doesn't come natural to think with every bite, am I hungry or am I full? It's just so much easier to just consume as we go along. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
Good. Thank you, Kelly. So we're excited to tell you a little bit more information about the mindful eating. And one of the resources that is really helpful as you look at a little bit more with mindful eating is looking a little bit with our diets. The diets that we have a lot of times really do deprive ourselves. And we're here in January right now. And one of the top New Year's resolutions is to lose weight. And a lot of times people do that by depriving themselves of things, of like, I'm not going to eat this or that, or I'm going to skip breakfast. And those are things that really make it hard for us to lose weight or to maintain a healthy weight. And it also puts a lot of guilt on us in terms of the foods that we are eating. And Kelly's going to talk a little bit later too. Now there's a lot of guilt associated with food. So we're going to try and give you some tips of some things you can do to be really mindful of what you're eating. So you're focusing more on the food and not worried so much about the weight in a special diet. So one of the resources that is really nice is the My Plate, or choosemyplate.gov is the website you can find it on. And this has been a tool that has been around for quite some time, but they've just done some updates to it that added some new tools that I think can really help people as they are looking at mindful eating. And just like we hear with students in schools that, you know, kids learn in different ways. Some learn better by doing things visually. Some learn better by hearing things, some by actually doing. I like to think of that too in terms of the mindful eating. There's different things different strategies that are going to work better for some people than they were for others. So we're going to share several different strategies with you, and you can kind of use them to see how they fit with you. So one of the new resources available on the MyPlate website is called the MyPlate Plan. And what you can do here with the MyPlate plan is you can go in and you'll put in some of your information, such as your age, your sex, your height, and your physical activity level. And then it's going to print out a plan for you according to MyPlate. It will tell you about how many fruits you need a day, how many ounces of grains, and it's going to give you a general plan for you to kind of follow. And this is where I like to think now we can talk about mindful eating in terms of what works best for us. For some people, they like to have this as like a comparison list. It's like, yep, I had my fruit, I can check it off my list. I had some vegetables, I can check that off my list. And then they can kind of use it at the end of the day to say, okay, I'm a little short on protein. I'm going to make sure I add some more protein, or before I eat something else, maybe before I have one of my occasional treats, I'm going to make sure that I had everything that my plan includes before I do anything extra. Okay, so that's one way you can kind of use this My Plan. Another mindful way you can use it is to actually help you plan ahead of time what you're going to eat. Especially if you're one of those people who waits until the last minute, you get home and you're starving, so you just eat anything and everything in sight. This is where the My Plate plan can come in really nice. So you'll have a general idea about how many different servings you should have from the different groups, and you can sit down with that and you can say, okay, for breakfast, I'm going to have a grain. For my grain, I'm going to have oatmeal today. And then for the fruit with breakfast, I'm going to have strawberries. And so you can really go ahead and kind of plan it out ahead of time so that you can be mindful of what you're going to eat. And again, this is especially helpful for people who maybe find themselves when they're in stressful situations, or maybe you just don't have a lot of time to prepare meals. If you can think ahead of time, that's going to help you a little bit with that. So I'd encourage you to check out that My Plate plan and modify it as you need. I find that sometimes I like to write my menus out ahead of time according to the My Plate, and sometimes I like to just do my noon meal because that's the meal where I struggle the most with. So again, do what works best for you. Another really nice resource they have on the My Plate website right now is it's an app. It's called this Start Simple with My Plate app. And this is an app where you can kind of set some little goals for yourself. And if you set goals, that's going to help you be mindful of what you're eating also. So it can be simple things like, I'm going to try and have one more fruit today. I'm going to try and use more whole grains. And then it's going to send you little messages and kind of give you some goals and tips to help you achieve that. So again, for people who like to kind of have some type of mobile device to track, that really works well. And if you like a little awards, it does give you badges along the way. So you have different things that you can kind of work towards. So the background of the My Plate actually comes from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. This is updated every 5 years, and it's really the piece that forms a lot of our policies on our nutrition in the United States. And it was actually just released about 2-3 weeks ago, so it's really new. There weren't a lot of major changes in it this year, which is really nice because then that makes it easier to continue on with a lot of our consistent messages. Some of the key things are on this slide. And it's making sure that you follow a healthy eating plan at every life stage. They've now added young children onto this too. So someone had mentioned they're starting a family. So it's a good time through all stages to make sure that we're being really mindful of what we're eating. The change that I like the most with the new dietary guidelines is the second one about customizing and enjoying nutrient-dense foods and beverages to reflect your personal preferences, cultural traditions, and also your budget, because not everyone can afford to eat the same foods. I've been working in nutrition for almost 30 years. And when I first started, nutrition was very prescriptive. You eat this, you eat that, you eat 30% of your calories from fat. But they've really found that that doesn't work well, because again, it gets back to what the diet piece was of that deprivation. And when we feel deprived, then we're going to kind of go on those binges in other areas. So I like this because it really focuses more on what your personal preferences are, what your cultural traditions are, and what foods you're accustomed to eating. And focusing more on kind of, we're going to talk about in a moment about the portion size, but really enjoying the food that you eat. I think a lot of times, Kelly had talked about, when there were bars at work, you might have a bar or some candy or maybe something that is kind of in one of those, what we kind of call more occasional foods. And oftentimes one of the first things you hear people say is, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that, or like, I want to eat this, but I really shouldn't. And there's just so much guilt associated with that. So again, by being more mindful of what we're eating, you can allow yourself permission to eat some of those foods, but then you're just more mindful of like, I'll have one bar or I'll have a small piece, and then enjoy that piece and then feel satisfied, and then wait until your next meal to have, something more to eat. So again, just being more aware that foods are okay and how can you fit it into your plan. Okay. This is another new little tagline that comes along with my dietary guidelines this year, and it's make every bite count. And this really focuses on the importance of being mindful of what you're eating and making all those bites count. As you've heard, calories can accumulate over time. And if you have too many calories, that can cause, weight gain. And if you don't eat enough calories, that can cause weight loss, or excess weight loss isn't good either. So really making sure that every bite counts, looking for those really nutrient dense foods, your fruits, your vegetables, and your whole grains. Again, not saying that those sweet foods or those occasional foods are bad, but if you're going to make every bite count, aim for more from those nutrient dense foods, and then save the other foods for more of those sometimes foods. So with making every bite count, it's really important to look at portion size. And this is something that we've talked about for the last few years in the United States. We've kind of gotten a little out of sync in terms of what a portion size is. If we go to a restaurant, if we have large plates at home, we tend to take larger portions than what we probably really need to take. But I also like to look at it, and a lot of times we hear that our portions are too big, but sometimes our portions can be too small. For example, I tend to, when I put meat on my plate, if I actually kind of weigh it out, I might think I'm getting 3 ounces, but maybe I only have 2 ounces. And if I'm not getting enough protein, that can cause me to be more hungry, which then can cause me to want to eat again before my next meal, or kind of do some binge eating. So making sure that you are getting enough from all the different food groups is important when you watch those portion sizes. Same with like the fruits and vegetables, making sure that you are getting a nice size and you are getting your full servings of the fruits. I like to talk a little bit about potatoes here too, because like the white potato has kind of gotten a bad rap, because it's like, you should just avoid white potatoes. There's not a lot of nutrition in them, but actually there is a lot of nutrition in white potatoes. It's just that the portion size is often too big. If you think of a baked potato that you might get at a restaurant, that's probably 2-3 servings of baked potatoes. An actual portion size of a good baked potato is really only the size of a small computer mouse. So it's not very big. It's just a small potato, not the big mammoth ones that we see. So what I'd like you to do now is if you could just grab a piece of paper, and I would like you just to write down what you had for one of your last meals. Okay, just go ahead and write down. I'll give you about a minute to write that down. And as you're doing it, think of any of the little things that you might have had on the side, whether it was, maybe some ketchup or mustard, butter, margarine. So think about what you had to drink. And then I would like you to look at, we just have a couple portion sizes listed here, like 3 ounces of fish is about the size of a smartphone. 3 ounces of meat is like a deck of cards. An ounce of cheese is 2 dice. And 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is about the size of a ping pong. If you just kind of look through your list, see, are there any food groups where you're thinking maybe your portion sizes are way too big, or maybe some of them are too small, or maybe some of them, like your vegetable group, that might be missing. So again, looking a little bit at what you have on your paper can kind of give you a clue in terms of maybe some places that you might want to be a little bit more mindful in terms of, first of all, just your portion sizes. And again, also, are you missing a complete food group? This one here talks a little bit about creeping calories, and it's good to remember that little things can really add up over the course of time. So this one here is talking about how just a few calories can cause, weight gain. And it might not seem like a lot, but just a few like chocolate candies after a meal over the course of a year can really add up significantly and can cause you to gain weight. But then you can also look at it the other way too, of like if you eat less calories, that can help you to lose weight. And here I like to mention that different people have different needs. A lot of times we talk in a mindful eating presentation, a lot of times people are thinking, well, how can I eat to lose weight? But there are some people who are needing to eat to gain weight. So people are made up all different ways and have all different needs. But no matter what your needs are, it's always good to be mindful of what you're eating. And again, making sure you're always getting those nutrient foods and the most out of each bite that you do take. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly.
We make decisions every day about food. And how many decisions related to food do you make every day? And if you'd like, if you could just put that, and the answer is one of these dots, put down how many food decisions you make in a day. Several saying 200, and that is the right answer. We make about 216 food decisions in a day on average. And oftentimes we think that the decisions we make are, well, what am I going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Maybe what am I going to have for a snack? Yeah, wow, to over 200 decisions as we go through our day. And most of the time these decisions we're not even conscious or aware of, whether or not we eat one thing or another, and those outside cues, those outside distractions are often the way we make those decisions. So here's just some things that have a huge impact on our food decisions. Mary talked about portion size and restaurants, and I think about the portion size at restaurants often, and I think, okay, I'm going to take and I'm going to split the portion size before I even start eating, because that way I won't continue to eat until it's gone. But so often I'll just eat the entire thing off the plate, and because my cue is plate is empty, it's gone before I know it. So just that portion size, and as consumers, it's an expectation for us, isn't it? We want to get a good value for our dollar, and so if we go to a restaurant and get what looks like a normal portion size, we sometimes feel like we've just not been getting the value that we need. Packaging makes a huge difference. The larger the package, generally speaking, the more we eat. And it's so easy to just continue to pour out. So that big box of cereal, we're probably going to put more cereal in our bowl if it's a big box versus a small box. The whole concept of those 100 calorie packets come from this cue, because then we know when we're done eating that little bag, that's 100 calories, and we shouldn't go and eat maybe 2 or 3 more of those little bags at 100 calories. Placement of food makes a difference. Going back again to that restaurant, as we look at a buffet, when you think about a buffet line, usually the restaurant will put as a first item a salad, something that's not too expensive, because we fill up our plate on usually the first thing we see. We generally don't go and look at the whole buffet to make the decisions that we want to make for our food. In school food service, we know that the first item on the food line has an 11% advantage over anything else. And so kids are going to take that food item. So that's the item, that's the prime real estate where you want to put that food that you really want to move on the food line. So placement is important. And I think too about placement at a grocery store. I want you to think about any grocery store you've ever been to. What's the relationship between the milk that you just want to run in and get to the front door that you're going in? Usually the placement is at the very back of the store and not in a direct line. It gives us the opportunity for unplanned purchases and finding those great deals. That's how we end up with $20 gallons of milk, because we just keep seeing great deals. And it also ties into signage, because as I'm going through the grocery store, getting my 1 gallon of milk and that's all I need, signage attracts my eyes. And I might grab something because it's a really good 10 for 10 sale. And I don't need 10 of that item, but it's such a good deal. So that signage can be very visual. I think of different types of billboards and for restaurants that make us think about the food and makes us want to eat it. Verbal cues. Have you ever been to the store, grocery store, and they are giving out samples? Try this, it's great. And that verbal cue encourages us to try something new. And sometimes guilt or the fact that it tastes so good makes us purchase it. So that's just some verbal cues. Convenience. We are creatures of habit and we like to have some convenience. And if that weren't the case, we wouldn't see drive-throughs. Dashboard dining is a real thing, and we are really focused on going through that drive-through and getting our meal. And when we think about being mindful, if we're eating behind our wheel of our car, we're probably not being very mindful of driving. It's hard to do both, eat or drive. And so that convenience of getting that food and taking off and eating can really impact what we eat and how much we eat. Expectations. There's so, when I see a name of a food item, it helps to build an anticipation or an expectation. If I see a commercial for a food, that helps to build that anticipation. It looks so attractive on the ads. Another thing that gets me is on menus at restaurants. If there's a picture of a food item, I'm really gravitating towards that item because it looks so good and it kind of builds that expectation. How about peers? Can peers influence your eating? Absolutely. If you go out with a group of friends, be sure to be the first one to order, because that first person kind of sets the tone for the whole table. You may be going in with the attitude of, I'm going to have the soup and salad for the day. And the first person might order and they are ordering the pasta special, and you go, oh, that sounds really good. And it can influence us. You know who else can influence our food choices? The people in our household. Right from the grocery store to the day and the time you're eating your meal, it can influence what we decide to eat. Appearance also makes a big difference. We eat with our eyes. If it doesn't look good, it will probably never go in our mouth. And so to make sure that the food looks good and attractive is important. And habit. Do you have any food habits that you just consistently do? You don't even think about them. It's just something that you automatically go to. Maybe it's peanut butter toast for breakfast. You may have had to have your second cup of coffee before you realized you just had a peanut butter toast, but it's a habit that you've built in. It might be a habit of snacking while you're cooking because you're hungry. It might be a habit of eating as soon as the kids get home from school. Whatever that habit might be, those are some external cues that might influence us. As I mentioned, packaging makes a difference. The bags of food that we bring into the home from Costco or Sam's Club or some of those big box stores are huge. And often they can be a good deal. That's not the point. The point is they never fit in my cupboards. They're too big. So the problem is I have to leave them out. And if I leave them out, I'm more encouraged to eat them. Out of sight means out of mind to me. But if I see them, I think, oh, that's a really great idea. or I might not even think about it. It might be one of those 200 decisions that I make and just start snacking. Okay, so advertising. Advertising helps to build expectations, as I mentioned earlier. So if you've still got that piece of paper and that pen handy, this is a little jingle challenge. And so I'm going to ask you to write down 1 through 6. What is the jingle associated? What is the food item associated with the jingle? So first, number 1, I'm loving it. 2, give me a break. 3, they're magically delicious. 4, $5 footlong. 5, the best part of waking up. And 6, it's the cheesiest. Number 1, McDonald's. Number 2, Kit Kat. 3, Lucky Charms. Number 4, Subway. Number 5, Folgers. And number 6, Kraft macaroni and cheese. How many of you started singing as you were listening to listening to the jingles, seeing the jingles? I'm betting most of you can remember, takes you right back and makes you remember what the song was. It just is so in our minds. But those kinds of jingles, those kinds of advertising help to set the stage for that food item and gets us to want to purchase it. So food is more than just food. There's a lot of different reasons why we eat, as we've talked about already. And there's some food habits that are harder to break. One is food as reward. If food was just nutrients, we would have figured out a way to stick everything we needed into a pill, right? But it's a lot more than that. So some of the things I like, food as rewards. When you get an A on your report card, we'll go out for ice cream. When I get that big promotion, I'm going out to eat. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It does set up that reward system, and it really helps to increase that emotional attachment to food and coupling it with success. And knowing that is important. Food is comfort. Comforting food provides us with some nostalgia, sentimental feelings for people eating it. It's kind of that feeling of really feeling good. And I know that many of you have probably felt that need for comfort food during COVID-19. And different people have different comfort foods. Another way of saying this for me is food is love. And I think about the comfort foods that I got from my family and that love that I got being given food. When I would go to my grandmother's house, she would always have chocolate chip cookies in the freezer for me to have so that I could dunk them in coffee. And that was her way of saying, I love you. And here's some, and that has become a comfort food for me, those chocolate chip cookies. Food is punishment. Keeping kids at the dinner table until they eat their vegetables. That sets the stage for people not liking vegetables. It feels like a punishment. Or you can't watch TV until you've finished everything on your plate. And I know that many of us grew up in that clean plate club, right? Where we had to finish everything that was on our plate. But we really don't want to encourage food as a punishment or as a reward. Some of us as adults experience this at New Year's time, right? We set that New Year's resolution, maybe overeaten all through the holidays. And so now is my time to really buckle down and lose some weight. And so I'm going to maybe have just detox shakes or something like that that will help me lose weight, which is not something that will work. So thinking about that as food as punishment. And then there's food as guilt, using food as guilt. It forces us to eat when we otherwise wouldn't. Adults tend to think about the price of food. I paid for this food, so I need to eat it, and I feel guilty if I throw it away. And sometimes it's a matter of somebody brings something to a party or to an event, and you feel obligated to try that food item, even though you probably wouldn't have been that interested in doing so. Mindful weight management. While most diets focus on changing what you eat, mindful eating focuses on how you eat it. You don't have to deprive yourself of foods or your favorite foods. And a few key strategies will help you lose weight without feeling deprived, which is something Mary mentioned earlier. So how can we make eating enjoyable? And this information comes from the University of Minnesota Center for Spirituality and Healing. Start small. Don't try to take on everything at once. Try one change in your eating styles. Try one thing that you want to feel comfortable with. And when you feel comfortable with that, move on to the next. Acknowledge and honor your hunger and listen to your body. Know the difference between being hungry and feeling stress. Sometimes it helps to keep a journal and know when you're feeling hungry. Get rid of distractions. Turn off the TV. Many of us are working from home right now, so we have the opportunity to work 24 hours, 7 days a week in front of the TV, including meal times. And so it's important to be sure to turn off that TV, turn off the computer so that you can make sure that you are paying attention to your cues and your body's needs. Engage with foods before, during, and after a meal. This is the crux of mindful eating. Think about your food and at every stage of the meal, starting from shopping, gathering the ingredients that you need, maybe growing your own ingredients, just knowing what your body wants, thinking about the different textures and the flavors of foods that you're craving, just meditating on the different foods, and then finally sitting down and enjoying it. Understand your emotions, but don't eat because of them. And so this can be very difficult because, again, we tie those different cues to our emotions. Different food is different things for different people, but making sure that we are aware of what we're doing and what we're eating and being mindful. Getting rid of the good and the bad labels. We're very thinking about food can oftentimes lead us to good and bad foods, and there might be foods that we are needing to eat in moderation. There are really no bad foods unless there's a medical condition. And so just being aware that good and bad sets us up for failure at times, because we may be craving something that's supposed to be bad, and then we associate that guilt with it. Eat with others. And this is certainly more difficult to do right now during COVID-19, but sharing a meal is so important. It helps us to be more mindful of our food. It helps us just to enjoy the food and the setting and the ambiance that those friendships can provide. Take your time. Sometimes we eat way too fast. We are in a hurry, we need to rush, and it takes our brain 20 to 30 minutes to get that message from our stomach, hey, I'm full. Hey, I've had enough. And sometimes we don't even take 20 minutes to eat a meal. And so making sure that we take that time that we need. Stop before you feel full. And again, that really ties to taking your time and making sure that you eat more slowly, but making sure that you're not overfilled, but listening to your body's cues. And then have fun and enjoy the process, whether it's shopping or gardening or cooking or cleaning up, cooking, after cooking. I'm not sure anybody really appreciates that, but it's certainly an important part of the cooking process. Have fun with that. And I see, thank you, Lina, just a comment that I made earlier about never reward with food. You're right. That's absolutely true. And I apologize for misstating, but that's a very, very valid point. So thanks for that reminder. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Mary, and she's going to talk more about mindful eating.
Thanks, Kelly. So Kelly shared some good tips on mindful eating, and now I'd like to do kind of a mindful eating activity. So for this one, we're just going to take a 1-minute stretch break, and what I'd like you to do during this stretch break is to go to your kitchen or your someplace where you might have some food and just grab one small piece of food, whether it be like here in the picture, a raisin, a slice of bread, a cracker, just some type of food. And then we're going to participate in a mindful eating activity. If you're someplace where you don't have any food handy, that is okay. You can just go ahead and think of a food that you might typically eat, and then we'll go through this activity. So I'll give you just a moment to go and get something, and then when you come back, we'll continue with the activity. What I would like you to do, first of all, is think of some time when you've maybe had something to eat and you ate it so quick, and then have you ever gone, I ate it, I don't even realize I ate it, it's gone, and I don't even know what it tasted like. That is a perfect example of mindless eating, where we're just filling our mouth and we're going as fast as we can, and we're not even thinking about what we're doing or even how the food tastes. So one thing with mindful eating we can really do is really pause and stop and really pay attention, like Kelly said, to the food that we're eating. So what I'd like you to do is just take a quick look at the food that you have and really look at it visually. What does it look like? What color is it? And how does it feel in your hand? Really paying attention to what that food is like. Next, I would like you to, I have a little cashew that I have taken, is to put it into your mouth, but don't actually chew it yet. Just let it see how it feels in your mouth. Are there certain tastes that you can get right off of it? For example, my cashew has a little bit of salt on the outside, really paying attention to that. Okay. Next, you can go ahead and chew it. But as you're chewing it, don't just chew 2 times and swallow. Really pay attention to the flavor, the texture. Is it crunchy? Is it soft? Is it moist? Is it dry? What does that food really taste like? Okay. Then you can go ahead and actually swallow your food. And same thing, what do you notice it as it's going down your throat? And do you actually maybe feel when some of it starts to get into your stomach and your stomach juices start to get going and process? There really is a lot to the food that we eat. It's way more than just the taste of it. But so often we're in such a hurry that, again, we just put it in our mouth really quickly and we don't really take the time to notice everything about our food. Its taste and its smell and all those different things. So again, I'd encourage you as you are eating your next meal, just to slow down and really be mindful of, what you're eating and the process of going through that. I've often heard some people say, as you're eating, to slow down, really think of, all the people that were even involved in terms of getting that raisin or cashew to your plate. You have the farmers, you have the truckers, you have people in the grocery stores. And it's taken a lot of work and time and effort to get this food on your plate. So really take and enjoy that piece of food versus just swallowing it quickly, okay? And I think it's good too to keep the environment in mind where you're eating. Kelly had mentioned sharing meals with people, and as much as possible to try and find a place to eat that you can really focus on the food that you're eating. With so many people working from home or just spending more time at home, it's so easy just to grab your food and sit down at the computer or sit down in front of the television and go ahead and eat. But again, if you can find a designated spot at a table or someplace without a lot of those distractions, then you can really focus on the food that you're eating. Now, we had some people mention about having young children or starting families. I think it's really important to role model this mindful eating as children are growing up. If they see adults being very mindful about what they're eating, paying attention to it, slowing down, and not just eating for the sake of eating, they're going to be more apt to really get some good nutritional habits and mindful eating habits from the beginning. and which is really helpful because that's just kind of how they'll learn to appreciate the food that they're eating. And again, just be very mindful of it. So just a quick activity to do. And it's something kind of fun to do if you have some families or friends, just to go ahead and do that activity at home too. So everybody can get an idea of what it's like to really be mindful of the different foods that you are eating. Earlier on, I talked about, doing some menu planning, and we have some great resources at Extension that you can use to help you out with that and help you think a little bit more about the foods that you're eating. And it's called Real Life Good Food, and the web address is right on there, Reallifegoodfood.umn.edu. And this is a website you can go to. It has just a whole variety of different things on it. It has recipes that you can make. And the nice thing about the recipes is that there are videos that go along with a lot of them. Also some videos on how to actually cut your produce so you have a better idea how to do that. I like it for menu planning, as I mentioned before, with the My Plate and using that My Plate plan. Here's a place you can go to, and it'll give you some ideas. If you're kind of in that rut of like, oh, I've had barbecues too much, or I've had too much stir fry, it's a place you can go to get some different recipe ideas that you can put in to do that mindful eating. And it's also a place where you can get some new recipe ideas. So if you feel like you're in that rut and you want to try something new and be more mindful with that, it's also a good place to go. Also has great activities that you can do for physical activity, because in addition to being mindful about what you eat, you want to be mindful about how you're moving your body and making sure that you keep working. So the key things we kind of wanted to talk about today, we had a chance to kind of review some of the different things that kind of society has that makes it a challenge to be mindful eating. And then Kelly reviewed, what it really does take or some hints and tips for mindful eating. And finally, we just want to make sure that you can continue to engage with us. We have lots of different things in family development. Join our Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and then that way you always can get little helpful tips and that you can use just to continue to find balance in your life and make the best of your days. Thanks again for joining, and we look forward to you joining some of the other future family development webinars. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.